I was holding a defibrillator over a 60-year-old man's chest when my phone buzzed with the text that shattered my world. Christmas Eve in the emergency room meant chaos, but nothing prepared me for Chloe's message. "Mom, they said there's no room for me at Grandma's table. I had to drive home alone. Spending Christmas by myself." My hands trembled as I continued CPR compressions. But inside, I felt like I was the one dying. While I worked a mandatory double shift to save lives, my own parents and sister had turned my 17-year-old daughter away on Christmas Eve. The cardiac patient stabilized around 3 in the morning, and I finally had a moment to call Chloe back. Her phone went straight to voicemail. My heart hammered as I imagined her alone in our empty house, probably crying herself to sleep on what should have been the most magical night of the year. I finished my shift at 7 in the morning on Christmas Day, my body exhausted but my mind racing. The 40-minute drive home felt like hours, as I replayed every family interaction from the past year, searching for signs I should have seen. My parents, Barbara and Harold, had always been traditional, but they loved Chloe. My sister Jennifer had her own family now with her husband David and their twin 8-year-olds, Tyler and Madison, but we'd all grown up celebrating Christmas together. When I pulled into our driveway, I noticed the Christmas lights I'd hung before my shift looked dim and lonely against the gray morning sky. Inside, I found Chloe curled up on the couch in the living room, still wearing the red dress she'd picked out specially for Christmas dinner. Her makeup had streaked down her cheeks, and tissues surrounded her like fallen snow. "Honey?" I sat beside her and pulled her into my arms. "Tell me exactly what happened." Chloe's voice came out small and broken. "I got to Grandma's house at 5 like we planned. Jennifer's family was already there, and the kids were playing in the living room. When I walked in, Grandma looked surprised to see me, like she'd forgotten I was coming. I stroked her hair, trying to stay calm. "What did she say?" she whispered to Jennifer, and then Jennifer came over and told me there wasn't enough room at the dinner table. She said they'd already set places for everyone who mattered, and they couldn't squeeze in another chair. Chloe's voice cracked. "But Mom, there were only 6 of them. Our dining table seats 8 people easily." My blood turned cold. I'd helped my parents buy that dining room set 5 years ago, specifically because it could accommodate our whole family with room to spare. What else happened? Jennifer said Christmas was for real families with both parents, and that I wouldn't fit in with their proper celebration. She said it right in front of Tyler and Madison. They just stared at me like I was some kind of outsider. Chloe pulled away to look at me with red-rimmed eyes. Then Grandma said single-parent households shouldn't expect the same treatment as complete families. The words hit me like physical blows. My parents had said this? About their own granddaughter? Chloe, this doesn't sound like them. Are you sure that's exactly what they said? Mom, I know you don't want to believe it, but it gets worse. Chloe wiped her nose with a tissue. Grandpa Harold came to the door when Jennifer was talking to me. He said I was the consequence of your poor choices, and that bringing me to family events made everyone uncomfortable. He said I should go home and think about how my presence affects other people's happiness. I felt like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart. They actually said these things? Out loud? Jennifer walked me to my car and told me this has been a long time coming. She said they've all been talking about the Chloe problem for months. Chloe's voice dropped to almost a whisper. She said maybe now you'd get the hint and stop bringing your mistake to family gatherings. I stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, our neighbors' houses glowed with Christmas decorations and warm light from windows, where families were probably opening gifts and sharing breakfast. Meanwhile, my daughter had spent Christmas Eve alone because my own family considered her an embarrassment. Mom, there's something else. Chloe's voice made me turn around. This isn't the first time. Jennifer's been saying things like this for months at family dinners. But I didn't want to upset you because I know how hard you work to help Grandma and Grandpa with their bills. What do you mean? For months. Remember Tyler's birthday party in October? Jennifer told me I couldn't sit with the family for cake because there wasn't room, even though there were empty chairs. She made me sit at a separate table by myself. When you were getting drinks, she told me that kids from broken homes shouldn't expect the same treatment as kids from real families. I sank back onto the couch, my mind reeling. Why didn't you tell me? Because you already work so hard, and you're always tired from extra shifts. Plus, you were so happy about helping Grandma and Grandpa keep their house. I didn't want to make you choose between helping them and protecting me. The full weight of my failure as a mother crashed over me. While I'd been working 60-hour weeks to support my parents financially and emotionally, they'd been systematically destroying my daughter's sense of belonging and self-worth. Every extra shift I'd picked up to help with their mortgage had taken time away from Chloe, time when I should have noticed the signs of what they were doing to her. Chloe, I need you to tell me everything. Every comment, every incident, every time they made you feel unwelcome. I should have protected you, and I failed. But I'm going to fix this. Over the next 2 hours, as Christmas morning light filled our living room, Chloe revealed a pattern of emotional cruelty that left me speechless. My family hadn't just excluded her from Christmas dinner. They'd been conducting a calculated campaign to make her feel worthless and unwanted, all while accepting my money and my devotion. The next 3 days passed in a haze of discovery that grew more horrifying by the hour. I called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years, telling my supervisor I had a family emergency. That wasn't a lie. I spent every waking moment talking with Chloe, uncovering layer after layer of systematic emotional abuse that had been happening right under my nose. On December 26th, while I made us pancakes for a late breakfast, Chloe told me about Thanksgiving. Jennifer seated everyone at the big table, but she put me at the card table in the corner with a folding chair. She said it was the kids' table, but Tyler and Madison got to sit with the adults. When I asked why, she said it was because they had proper families, and I was just visiting. I flipped pancakes with shaking hands. What did Grandma and Grandpa say? Grandma said it was Jennifer's house, so Jennifer made the rules. Grandpa said maybe, if you'd made better life choices, I'd have a real family to sit with. Each revelation felt like discovering a tumor that had been growing for years while I'd been oblivious. I'd been so focused on being the responsible daughter, the one who helped financially and emotionally, that I'd handed my child over to people who saw her as a burden and an embarrassment. That afternoon, Chloe showed me her phone and scrolled through months of text messages from Jennifer's children. Tyler and Madison had been forbidden from playing with Chloe at family gatherings. The messages revealed that Jennifer had told her 8-year-olds that Chloe was a bad influence because she came from a broken home. Look at this one from Madison, Chloe said, showing me a text from November. She says her mom told her that kids without dads usually end up in trouble, so she can't be friends with me anymore. Mom. Madison is 8 years old. She doesn't even understand what she's saying. But Jennifer is teaching her to look down on me. I read message after message, from children who'd been coached to exclude and judge my daughter. Tyler had written that his mom said Chloe was probably going to drop out of school and get pregnant young because that's what happens to girls without father figures. Madison had sent a photo of a family drawing assignment from school, with a note that her teacher said real families have moms and dads, not just moms who make mistakes. Chloe, why didn't you tell me they were turning Tyler and Madison against you? Because I kept hoping it would get better. I thought if I was really good and helpful at family gatherings, maybe they'd start to like me again. Plus, you always talked about how important family is, and how we need to stick together. I didn't want to be the reason our family fell apart. By December 27th, I'd learned about the gift disparity that had been going on for years. While Tyler and Madison received expensive Christmas and birthday presents worth hundreds of dollars each, Chloe consistently received token gifts worth $20 or $30. Last Christmas, Tyler had gotten a new gaming system, and Madison had gotten an American Girl doll with accessories. Chloe had received a generic gift card to a discount store. They always acted like the gifts were equal, Chloe said as we sat in her bedroom, looking through years of family photos on her laptop. But Jennifer would make comments about how some kids appreciate practical gifts more than fancy ones. She'd say it in front of everyone, like I should be grateful for getting less because I come from a different kind of family. I studied the photos with growing horror. In picture after picture from family gatherings over the past 3 years, I could see the pattern I'd been blind to. Chloe stood slightly apart from the group, or sat at the edge of family photos. In several pictures, she'd been cropped out entirely. Tyler and Madison were always centered and smiling, while Chloe looked uncertain and sad. Mom, look at this one from Easter. Chloe pointed to a photo from my parents' backyard. See how Jennifer positioned everyone? Tyler and Madison are sitting between Grandma and Grandpa on the good chairs. I'm standing behind everyone on that broken lawn chair that's about to collapse. Jennifer took like 10 pictures until she got one where I looked awkward and out of place. That evening, I called my bank to check the automatic transfers I'd been sending to my parents every month. $350 went to them on the 15th of each month to help with their mortgage after my father's retirement reduced their income. I'd been doing this for 3 years, believing I was helping my parents keep their home and maintain their dignity. But when I logged into my banking app and looked more carefully at the records, I discovered something that made my stomach drop. My parents' mortgage payment was only $200 per month. I'd been sending them almost twice what they needed for their house payment. On December 28th, I drove to my parents' house for the first time since Christmas Eve. They lived in a modest ranch-style home in a quiet neighborhood, the same house where Jennifer and I had grown up. I'd always felt proud that my extra income was helping them stay in their family home. I knocked on the front door, but Harold answered with a surprised expression. Stacie? What are you doing here? We weren't expecting you. I need to ask you some questions about the money I send you each month. Barbara appeared behind him, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. Honey, is everything all right? You look upset. I stepped inside without being invited, which was unusual for me. I'd always been the polite daughter, the one who waited for permission and never rocked the boat. I want to know what you're doing with the $350 I send you every month. My parents exchanged a look that confirmed my worst suspicions. Well, sweetheart, Barbara said carefully, we use it for household expenses and bills. You know how tight money gets on a fixed income. Your mortgage is only $200 a month. I checked with the county records office. Where does the extra $150 go? Harold sat down heavily in his recliner. Stacie, we help Jennifer's family sometimes. Those kids need things for school and activities. Tyler's in traveling baseball, and Madison takes dance lessons. It's expensive to raise children properly. The words hit me like a slap. So you're taking the money I send to help you and giving it to Jennifer's children instead? It's not like that, Barbara said quickly. We're helping the family. Jennifer's been having a hard time since David's hours got cut at work. We're just redistributing resources where they're needed most. David's hours got cut? When? Another look passed between my parents, and I realized I'd stumbled onto something bigger. About 8 months ago, Harold admitted. He's been looking for something full-time, but the job market is tough. Jennifer can't work because someone needs to be home with the twins. 8 months. For 8 months, I'd been working extra shifts to send money that was supporting Jennifer's family while they treated my daughter like garbage. I'd been funding their lifestyle while they systematically destroyed Chloe's self-worth and sense of belonging. Let me understand this, I said, my voice getting dangerously quiet. I've been sending you money for 3 years, believing it was helping you keep your house. Instead, you've been using it to pay for Tyler and Madison's extracurricular activities and Jennifer's household expenses. Meanwhile, you've been telling Chloe she doesn't deserve the same treatment as other family members because she comes from a broken home. Barbara looked uncomfortable. Stacie, you're making it sound worse than it is. We love Chloe, but Jennifer's children need stability and consistency. They have a proper family structure, and we want to support that. A proper family structure. I repeated the words slowly. And what exactly does that make Chloe and me? Harold cleared his throat. Sweetheart, we're not trying to hurt anyone's feelings. But Jennifer's children have advantages that Chloe doesn't. They have 2 parents who are committed to raising them right. We think it's important to invest in children who have the best chance of success. I stared at my parents, seeing them clearly for the first time in years. They weren't just prioritizing Jennifer's family. They were actively working to ensure that Chloe felt inferior and unwelcome. My financial support had enabled them to create a hierarchy where Tyler and Madison were worthy of investment and love, while Chloe was treated as a charity case who should be grateful for scraps. I need to go, I said, standing up. I need to think about all of this. Stacie, don't leave angry, Barbara called after me. We're family. We can work this out. I turned around at the door. You're absolutely right. We are family, and I'm about to show you what that really means. December 29th brought a cold front that matched my mood perfectly. I'd spent the night awake, staring at the ceiling, and thinking about 3 years of financial manipulation and emotional abuse. By morning, I'd made my decision. It was time for the truth. All of it, laid bare with no more politeness or family diplomacy. I drove to my parents' house at 10 in the morning, knowing Jennifer would be there. Thursday mornings had become her regular coffee date with our mother, a tradition that apparently involved planning how to exclude my daughter from family life. I didn't knock this time. I used my key and walked into the kitchen, where I found exactly what I'd expected. Jennifer sat at the kitchen table with Barbara and Harold, drinking coffee from the good china cups that only came out for special occasions. Jennifer's presence, apparently, qualified as special. Chloe's never had. Stacie! Jennifer looked startled. What are you doing here? Don't you have to work? I took time off to have an overdue conversation with my family. I remained standing, looking down at the 3 people who'd systematically destroyed my daughter's sense of worth. We need to talk about Christmas Eve. And we need to talk about it now. Barbara set down her coffee cup with a nervous clink. Honey, if this is about Chloe being upset, we can explain. Oh, I'm sure you can. Let's start with Jennifer. Tell me exactly what you said to my daughter when you turned her away from Christmas dinner. Jennifer straightened in her chair, and I saw a flash of something calculated in her eyes. I told her the truth. We'd already planned the seating arrangement, and there wasn't room for another person. It wasn't personal. It wasn't personal. I repeated her words slowly. Jennifer, your children's table seats 8 people. There were 6 of you. Basic math says there was room for 2 more people, not just 1. Well, we needed space for the dishes and... Stop lying to me. My voice cut through her excuses. Chloe told me exactly what you said. You told her that Christmas was for real families with both parents. You said she wouldn't fit in with your proper celebration. You called her presence at family events uncomfortable. Harold shifted in his chair. Now, Stacie, you're upset, and you're exaggerating. Am I? I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recording app. Because I've been documenting some very interesting conversations over the past few days. Did you know that in our state, only one party needs to consent to record a conversation? The color drained from Jennifer's face. You've been recording us? Just this conversation, actually, but I wish I'd started months ago. I hit record and set the phone on the table where we could all see it. Now, let's try this again. Jennifer, tell me why you think my daughter doesn't deserve the same treatment as your children. Jennifer looked trapped, glancing between our parents for support. That's not what I said. You're twisting everything around. Then clarify it for me. In your own words, explain why Tyler and Madison get to sit at the family table while Chloe sits alone at a card table. Explain why they get expensive Christmas gifts while she gets discount store gift cards. Explain why you've forbidden your children from playing with their cousin, because Jennifer stopped herself, realizing she was about to admit to something damaging. This is ridiculous. You're attacking me for trying to maintain some standards in our family. What standards exactly? Children need stability. They need to see what proper families look like, not broken homes where mothers make poor choices and raise kids without fathers. Jennifer's voice rose, and I saw the real venom she'd been hiding. Tyler and Madison deserve better role models than a girl whose mother couldn't even keep a man around long enough to marry him. The words hung in the air like poison. Barbara gasped, but she didn't contradict Jennifer. Harold looked uncomfortable, but he didn't defend Chloe either. So that's what this is really about, I said quietly. You think Chloe is inferior because her father left when I was pregnant. I think children learn what they see, Jennifer shot back. Tyler and Madison are going to grow up understanding that families have mothers and fathers who are committed to each other. They're not going to think it's normal for women to have babies with men who don't stick around. And what lesson do you think you're teaching them when you treat their cousin like a second-class citizen? I'm teaching them that choices have consequences, and that some family structures are better than others. Harold finally spoke up. Stacie, Jennifer has a point. Children need to understand that the traditional family is the foundation of society. We don't want Tyler and Madison to think that single parenthood is just as good as marriage. I turned to look at my father, this man who'd raised me to believe in fairness and kindness. So you're saying Chloe deserves to be treated as less than your other grandchildren because I got pregnant with someone who turned out to be unreliable? We're saying that Jennifer's children have advantages that Chloe doesn't, and we want to reinforce positive examples, Barbara said carefully. We love Chloe, but you don't respect her. You don't value her. You see her as a cautionary tale, instead of as a person worthy of love and dignity. She's the product of a broken situation, Jennifer said coldly. We can love her while still acknowledging that she represents the consequences of poor choices. I felt something fundamental shift inside me, like a dam breaking. You want to talk about choices and consequences? Let's talk about yours. I reached into my purse and pulled out the folder I'd prepared the night before. Jennifer, when exactly was David laid off from his job? Jennifer's face went white. What does that have to do with anything? Answer the question. It was temporary. He's looking for something better. He was fired 8 months ago for missing too much work, according to his former supervisor who goes to my church. He hasn't had a steady job since April, which means you've been living on unemployment benefits and the money I send to Mom and Dad. Harold started to speak, but I held up my hand. I'm not finished. Mom, Dad, your mortgage payment is $207 per month. I've been sending you $350. Where does the extra money go? We told you. We help with household expenses, Barbara said weakly. You give it to Jennifer. You've been taking the money I earn working extra shifts in the emergency room and redistributing it to Jennifer's family. The daughter who treats your granddaughter like garbage gets my money, while the granddaughter you claim to love gets emotional abuse. Jennifer stood up abruptly. This is none of your business, Stacie. What Mom and Dad do with their money is their choice. Their money? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Jennifer, it's my money. I've been working 60-hour weeks for 3 years, missing time with my daughter, so I could help my parents. Except I haven't been helping my parents. I've been subsidizing your lifestyle while you systematically destroy my child's self-worth. You don't understand the pressure we're under, Jennifer said desperately. Tyler needs to be in traveling baseball or he'll never get into a good college. Madison's dance lessons are developing her confidence and coordination. These things cost money. And David's been going through a rough patch. So you decided my daughter should pay the price for your husband's failures? That's not how it is. Then how is it, Jennifer? Explain to me how taking money that could have been spent on Chloe's future and using it to pay for Tyler's baseball equipment while telling Chloe she doesn't deserve the same treatment as other grandchildren is anything other than theft and emotional abuse. Harold cleared his throat. Stacie, you're being dramatic. We're trying to do what's best for all the children. Are you? Because here's what I discovered when I really looked at how this family operates. I opened my folder and pulled out printed bank statements. For 3 years, I've sent you $4,200 per year. That's $12,600 total. Tyler's baseball expenses for this year alone were $2,800. Madison's dance lessons, costumes, and recital fees were $1,800. Jennifer, your grocery allowance from Mom and Dad's account is $600 per month. Barbara gasped. Stacie, how did you get this information? I co-signed on your mortgage refinance last year, remember? That gave me access to your account information when I requested it. What I found was 3 years of financial records, showing exactly how my money has been spent. Chloe's Christmas gift this year cost $28. Tyler's gaming system cost $450. Madison's American Girl doll and accessories cost $320. Jennifer sank back into her chair. You don't understand. Tyler and Madison need these things to fit in with their friends. They have opportunities that Chloe what? Doesn't deserve? Can't handle? Wouldn't appreciate? My voice rose. Jennifer, my daughter has a 4.0 grade point average. She volunteers at the animal shelter every weekend. She's in the National Honor Society and student government. She's never been in trouble, never caused drama, never asked for anything beyond basic love and acceptance from her family. What exactly makes Tyler and Madison more deserving of investment and respect? They have stability, Barbara said quietly. They have a two-parent home, and that gives them the right to treat Chloe like she's worth less? It gives them advantages that we want to protect and nurture, Harold said. Stacie, you have to understand that children from intact families have better outcomes. We're investing in success. What you're investing in is cruelty. What you're protecting is a hierarchy where my daughter is permanently at the bottom because of circumstances she had no control over. I stood up and gathered my papers. But here's the thing about choices and consequences. You've made yours. Now you get to live with mine. What does that mean? Jennifer asked nervously. It means I'm done. I'm done sending money that gets used to hurt my daughter. I'm done pretending that your treatment of Chloe is acceptable because you wrap it in talk about family values and proper examples. I'm done enabling people who think emotional abuse is justified if you call it life lessons. Barbara started crying. Stacie, please don't destroy our family over a misunderstanding. I'm not destroying anything. I'm protecting my daughter from people who've been damaging her for years while I was too busy trying to be the perfect daughter and sister to notice. I stopped the recording on my phone and put it in my pocket. You destroyed this family the first time you decided Chloe was worth less than your other grandchildren. I'm just finally responding appropriately. I walked toward the door, then turned back one more time. Oh, and Jennifer? David wasn't laid off. He was fired for showing up to work drunk 3 times. His supervisor told me the whole story when I called to verify your unemployment claim. So when you're teaching Tyler and Madison about proper families and good choices, you might want to start with some honesty about your own situation. I left them sitting in stunned silence, the truth finally spoken, and the consequences finally beginning. I drove home in a strange state of calm clarity, like the eye of a hurricane. For the first time in years, I knew exactly what I needed to do. The conversation at my parents' house had revealed the full scope of the betrayal, but it had also shown me the path forward. No more hoping they'd change. No more trying to preserve family peace at Chloe's expense. It was time for strategic action. I found Chloe in her bedroom, working on college application essays. She looked up when I knocked on her door, and I saw a wariness in her eyes that broke my heart. My daughter had learned to expect disappointment from the adults who should have protected her. How did it go? She asked carefully. It went exactly as badly as expected, which means I finally know what we're dealing with. I sat on her bed and took her hands in mine. Chloe, I need you to know that everything they've said and done to you is wrong. You're not worth less than Tyler and Madison. You're not a mistake or a consequence or a cautionary tale. You're my daughter, and you deserve love and respect from everyone in our family. Tears welled up in her eyes. Does this mean we're going to stop seeing them? It means we're going to establish boundaries that protect your dignity and mine. But first, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Chloe nodded. Do you want to maintain a relationship with your grandparents and Jennifer? Or would you prefer to cut contact completely? She thought for a long moment. I want them to love me the way they love Tyler and Madison. But if they can't do that, I don't want to pretend anymore. I'm tired of feeling like I have to earn something that should be automatic. Then we're going to give them a choice. They can treat you with the respect and love you deserve, or they can lose access to both of us. But either way, you're never going to be in a position where they can hurt you again. That afternoon, I made a series of phone calls that would change everything. First, I called my bank and stopped the automatic transfer to my parents' account. Then I called the mortgage company and had my name removed as a cosigner on their refinance loan, which I was legally entitled to do within the first year of signing. Next, I called a family lawyer who attended my church. Linda Martinez had helped several nurses I worked with navigate difficult family situations, and she had a reputation for being both compassionate and strategic. Linda, I need advice about protecting my daughter from emotional abuse by family members, while also protecting myself from potential financial liability. Tell me what's been happening, Stacie. I spent an hour detailing everything I'd discovered. Linda took careful notes and asked clarifying questions about the financial arrangements and the documented emotional abuse. What you're describing is a pattern of psychological manipulation and financial exploitation, she said when I finished. Your daughter has been subjected to systematic emotional abuse designed to damage her self-esteem and sense of belonging. Your financial support has been obtained under false pretenses and used to fund the lifestyle of people who are actively harming your child. What are my options? Several, depending on how far you want to take this. You can simply cut contact and stop financial support, which is well within your rights. You can demand repayment of funds that were obtained fraudulently. Or, if you want to ensure this behavior stops permanently, you can document everything and pursue legal remedies for emotional abuse and financial fraud. What would you recommend? I think you should document everything thoroughly and present your family with a clear choice. They can acknowledge the harm they've caused, commit to changing their behavior, and work to repair the relationship with your daughter. Or they can face the legal and financial consequences of their actions. Can you help me prepare that documentation? Absolutely. But first, I want you to think carefully about what outcome you actually want. Do you want your family to change? Or do you want them out of your life permanently? I thought about Chloe's words earlier. She wanted them to love her properly, but she was prepared to walk away if they couldn't. I want them to have the opportunity to make this right. But if they choose not to take that opportunity, I want to protect Chloe from any future harm. Then, let's create a comprehensive record of what's happened and give them one chance to choose correctly. Over the next 3 days, I compiled a detailed dossier of evidence. Linda helped me organize bank records, showing the financial manipulation, printed copies of text messages between Jennifer's children and Chloe, revealing the coached exclusion, and written statements documenting years of emotional abuse incidents. I also made copies of recorded conversations I'd had with Chloe about specific incidents, with her permission. Linda explained that while these recordings wouldn't necessarily be admissible in court, they would be powerful evidence of the systematic nature of the emotional abuse. The pattern is clear and well documented, Linda said as we reviewed the final folder. Your daughter has been subjected to persistent psychological abuse, designed to make her feel inferior and unwelcome. The financial component adds another layer, showing that your family has been taking money from you while harming your child. On January 2nd, I wrote the letter that would either save my family or end it forever. The letter was 6 pages long, typed and printed on my personal letterhead. It began with a clear statement of purpose. This letter documents a pattern of emotional abuse directed toward my 17-year-old daughter, Chloe, by members of our extended family, as well as financial fraud involving money I provided under false pretenses. I detailed every incident Chloe had shared with me, with dates and specific quotes where possible. I included copies of bank statements showing how my money had been redistributed to Jennifer's family. I attached photographs from family gatherings, showing Chloe's exclusion and isolation. The letter concluded with an ultimatum. You have 30 days to respond to this documentation, with a plan for making genuine amends to Chloe and establishing respectful boundaries going forward. This plan must include acknowledgement of the harm caused, sincere apologies to Chloe, and concrete commitments to treating her as an equal member of our family. If you choose not to respond, or if your response is inadequate, I will pursue all legal remedies available to protect my daughter and recover funds obtained fraudulently. Linda reviewed the letter and made minor suggestions for legal clarity, but she agreed that it struck the right tone. You're giving them a clear path to reconciliation while making it clear that continued abuse won't be tolerated. The legal language at the end will get their attention, but the focus on repair and acknowledgement shows that your priority is protecting Chloe, not revenge. On January 3rd, I delivered copies of the letter personally. I left one copy at my parents' house, in an envelope marked Barbara and Harold, personal and confidential. I left another copy at Jennifer's house with the same marking. I kept the originals with Linda, along with instructions for what to do if my family chose not to respond appropriately. That evening, Chloe and I had dinner at our favorite Thai restaurant, something we hadn't done together in months because of my extra work shifts. What happens now? She asked as we shared pad thai and spring rolls. Now we wait to see what kind of people they really are, I said. And regardless of what they choose, You and I are going to build the kind of life where you never have to question your worth or settle for crumbs of love from people who should cherish you. Are you scared? She asked quietly. Terrified, I admitted. But I'm more scared of what would happen to you if I kept enabling their behavior. You deserve better, honey. We both do. 3 days later, my phone started ringing. The first call came at 6 in the morning on January 6th. I was getting ready for work when my phone buzzed with Harold's number. I'd expected contact, but not this early or this frantic. Stacie, we need to talk immediately. Can you come over before your shift? I can talk now. On the phone. Not on the phone. In person. This is important. There was something in his voice I'd never heard before. Not anger or hurt, but genuine panic. What's happening, Dad? The bank called yesterday. They're saying our mortgage payment is going to increase by $300 per month starting in February because you removed yourself as a cosigner. We can't afford that, Stacie. We'll lose the house. I sat down on my bed, taking in this information. Dad, when you refinanced with me as a cosigner, what exactly did you tell the bank about your income? Silence on the other end. Dad, we may have included the money you send us as part of our regular income when we applied for the new loan terms. You told the bank that the $350 I send you each month was permanent, guaranteed income? Well, yes, but you've been so reliable for 3 years, and you always said family comes first. So we assumed you committed loan fraud. The words came out flat and certain. You told the bank you had income you don't actually have, using money that was given as temporary help, not permanent support. Stacie, you can't just abandon us now. We're your parents. We raised you and loved you and spent the past 3 years taking my money while allowing Jennifer to abuse your granddaughter. I stood up and began pacing. Dad, I'm not abandoning you. I'm stopping a financial arrangement that was enabling emotional abuse of my child. But what are we supposed to do? We can't make these payments without your help. You can downsize to a house you can afford on your actual income. You can ask Jennifer and David to contribute since they've been benefiting from my money for years. You can figure out a solution that doesn't involve taking money from someone whose daughter you treat as inferior. Stacie, please. We're old. Moving at our age is complicated and stressful. Can't we work something out? Did you read the letter I left for you? Another pause. Jennifer said, it was just you being dramatic because you were upset about Christmas. Jennifer, read your letter? Well, yes. She was here when it arrived, and she said, Dad, stop. Don't tell me what Jennifer said. Tell me what you think about what I wrote. Do you acknowledge that Chloe has been treated unfairly by this family? Sweetheart, families are complicated. Sometimes people say things they don't mean when they're stressed, or yes or no, Dad. Do you believe Chloe deserves the same love and respect as Tyler and Madison? The pause was so long I thought the call had dropped. Dad? Stacie, it's not that simple. Jennifer's children have needs and advantages that… I hung up. My phone immediately started ringing again, but I turned it off and finished getting ready for work. The conversation had told me everything I needed to know. Even faced with losing their home, my parents were more concerned with maintaining Jennifer's version of events than with acknowledging the harm they'd caused to Chloe. At work, I threw myself into patient care with renewed focus. Every time I helped a scared child in the emergency room, I thought about my own child sitting alone at Christmas dinner while her family decided she wasn't worth basic dignity. Every time I comforted parents worried about their injured children, I thought about how I'd failed to protect Chloe from emotional injury happening right in front of me. During my lunch break, I turned my phone back on to find 12 missed calls from Jennifer and 4 voicemails. I listened to them in my car in the hospital parking lot. The first message was angry. Stacie, what you're doing is completely unfair. You can't just cut off Mom and Dad because of a miscommunication about Christmas dinner. They're going to lose their house because you're having a temper tantrum. The second message was pleading. Please call me back. We need to fix this. I know you're upset, but destroying the whole family isn't the answer. Think about Tyler and Madison. Do you want them to see their grandparents lose their home? The third message was desperate. Stacie, I read your letter. You're making everything sound worse than it was. Yes, maybe I said some things I shouldn't have, but I was trying to teach the kids about family values. I never meant to hurt Chloe's feelings. We can talk about this and fix it. The fourth message was revealing. David lost another job interview today. We're barely hanging on financially, and now Mom and Dad are talking about asking us to move in with them if they have to downsize. I have 2 kids to think about. I can't have them living in some tiny apartment because you decided to punish the whole family. I sat in my car, processing these messages. Jennifer's concerns were entirely about the practical consequences of my actions for her own family. Not once had she mentioned Chloe's well-being, or acknowledged the emotional damage she'd caused. Her apology was hollow and defensive, focused on her intentions rather than the impact of her behavior. When I got home that evening, I found Chloe waiting with news of her own. "Tyler texted me today," she said, showing me her phone. "Look at what he wrote." The message read, "My mom says your mom is trying to make my grandparents homeless because you lied about Christmas dinner. She says you're making up stories to get attention, and now my whole family might have to move into a gross apartment. Why can't you just admit you're lying and fix this?" I stared at the text, feeling fresh rage at Jennifer's manipulation. "Chloe, you know this is completely wrong, right? You didn't lie about anything, and you're not responsible for any financial consequences your aunt and grandparents are facing." "I know, but it still hurts. Tyler's only 8 years old. He doesn't understand what really happened. But now he thinks I'm a liar who's trying to hurt his family." "What did you write back?" "Nothing yet. What should I say?" I thought carefully before responding. This was an opportunity to model healthy boundary setting for my daughter. "I think you should tell him that family members should treat each other with kindness and respect, and that you hope someday his family learns to do that. Then I think you should block his number until the adults in your family grow up enough to stop using children as weapons." Chloe nodded and typed a response that was more mature than anything the adults in our family had managed. "Tyler, I hope your family figures out their problems. I also hope someday you learn the difference between telling the truth and lying. Until then, I need space from people who hurt me." Then she blocked both Tyler and Madison's numbers. "I'm proud of you," I told her. That was exactly the right response. That night, I called Linda to update her on the day's developments. "Your family's response is unfortunately typical," she said. "They're focused on managing the consequences of their behavior rather than acknowledging the behavior itself. The financial pressure is real, but it's the result of choices they made, not something you're doing to them. Jennifer keeps saying, 'I'm punishing the whole family.' You're protecting your daughter. There's a difference, though people who've been enabled for years often can't see it." Linda paused. "Stacie, I want you to prepare yourself for the possibility that they're not going to choose accountability. Based on what you've told me, they seem more invested in maintaining their narrative than in genuinely repairing the relationship. What happens then? Then you'll know you gave them every opportunity to do the right thing, and you can move forward with clear boundaries and no guilt. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for people is to stop enabling their worst behavior, even if they never thank you for it." 3 weeks into January, the consequences of years of poor choices and financial mismanagement were catching up with my family. My parents had listed their house for sale and were looking at smaller apartments. Jennifer and David were facing their own financial reckoning without the buffer of my monthly support. But most importantly, Chloe was beginning to heal. Without the regular exposure to people who made her question her worth, she was becoming more confident and relaxed. She'd started looking at colleges with renewed enthusiasm, knowing that her future didn't depend on earning approval from people who'd already decided she didn't deserve it. "Mom," she said one evening as we worked together on scholarship applications, "do you think they'll ever understand what they did wrong?" "I don't know, honey. But I do know that whether they understand or not, you're going to be okay. We're going to build a life where your worth isn't up for debate." That was the night I realized that regardless of how my family responded to my letter, I'd already won the most important victory. I'd chosen my daughter's well-being over other people's comfort, and I'd finally learned the difference between keeping peace and enabling abuse. But the biggest confrontation was still coming. On January 28th, exactly 30 days after I'd delivered my letter, my phone rang at 7 in the evening with a call from Harold. I'd been expecting this contact since my ultimatum was clear, but I wasn't prepared for what I heard when I answered. Stacie, you need to get over here right now. Barbara found your letter, and she's having some kind of breakdown. She's been screaming and crying for 2 hours, and I can't calm her down. What do you mean she found my letter? I gave you both copies 4 weeks ago. Well, Jennifer said you were just being dramatic, so we put the letters away without reading them. But Barbara was going through the filing cabinet today looking for tax documents, and she found hers and actually read it. I almost laughed at the absurdity. They dismissed my carefully documented evidence of emotional abuse as drama without even reading it, while their financial world crumbled around them. And now that she's read it, she's saying things like she never realized how bad it was for Chloe, and that she's been a terrible grandmother. Jennifer's here trying to calm her down, but Barbara won't stop crying. Where's Chloe right now? I asked, looking around our living room. Upstairs doing homework. Why? Because I'm not bringing her into whatever chaos is happening at your house. If you want to talk, we can talk. But Chloe doesn't participate in any more family drama until I know it's safe for her emotional well-being. 20 minutes later, I arrived at my parents' house to find cars in the driveway that told the whole story. Harold's pickup truck, Barbara's sedan, Jennifer's SUV, and David's work van. The entire family had gathered for what I suspected would be either a genuine reckoning or a coordinated attempt to manipulate me back into compliance. I walked through the front door to find Barbara sitting at the kitchen table with red, swollen eyes and a pile of tissues. Jennifer hovered nearby, looking defensive and angry. Harold sat across from Barbara looking lost, and David stood by the counter like he'd rather be anywhere else. Stacie, thank God you're here, Barbara said, standing up unsteadily. I need to talk to you about Chloe. I had no idea we were hurting her so badly. This letter, these examples you gave, I feel sick reading them. Jennifer shot me a furious look. Mom, we talked about this. Stacie is exaggerating everything to make us look bad. She's manipulating the situation to get attention. Jennifer, stop talking, Barbara said firmly, surprising everyone in the room. I've read every word of this letter 3 times. I've looked at the bank statements. I've seen the text messages between your kids and Chloe. This isn't exaggeration. This is documentation of things we actually said and did. I remained standing near the door, ready to leave if this turned into another attempt to justify the unjustifiable. What specifically did you want to discuss? Barbara picked up my letter from the table with shaking hands. This part where you quoted me from Christmas Eve. You wrote that I said single-parent households shouldn't expect the same treatment as complete families. I remember saying that, and I remember thinking I was being practical and realistic. But reading it now, seeing it written down, I realize how cruel that must have sounded to a 17-year-old girl who just wanted to have Christmas dinner with her family. It didn't just sound cruel, Barbara. It was cruel. I know that now. But I need you to understand. I didn't think of it as rejecting Chloe. I thought I was supporting Jennifer's family structure and teaching important values about marriage and commitment. Harold cleared his throat. Stacie, we both read the whole letter today. The financial part, the gift disparity, the seating arrangements, all of it. When you lay it out like that, with dates and amounts and specific quotes, it's impossible to deny that we've been treating Chloe differently than Tyler and Madison. Differently and worse, I said quietly. You've been treating her like she's worth less, because of circumstances she had no control over. Jennifer finally erupted. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Now you have them feeling guilty and ashamed when all they were trying to do was provide stability and good examples for the children. Yes, maybe we could have handled some things better. But you're making it sound like we were intentionally abusing Chloe. Jennifer, were you or were you not intentionally teaching your children to exclude and look down on their cousin? I was teaching them about proper family values. By telling them that children from single-parent homes are bad influences? By forbidding them from playing with Chloe? By making her sit alone while they got preferential treatment? David spoke for the first time. Jennifer, maybe we should listen to what Stacie is saying. Some of the things you said about Chloe over the years, I thought they were pretty harsh even at the time. Jennifer whirled around to face her husband. Don't you dare turn on me now. I've been trying to protect our children's sense of stability while Stacie works all the time and raises her daughter without a father figure. Someone needs to model proper family structure. By degrading and excluding a child? I asked. Jennifer, Chloe has never done anything to deserve the treatment you've given her. She's never been disrespectful, never caused problems, never asked for anything beyond basic inclusion and kindness. Your hostility toward her has nothing to do with family values and everything to do with your own insecurities and prejudices. Barbara stood up shakily. Jennifer, I need you to stop defending this. I've spent the whole day thinking about every family gathering for the past 3 years, and Stacie is right. We've been systematically making Chloe feel unwelcome and inferior. Whether we meant to or not, that's what we did. So what do you want me to say? Jennifer's voice was rising. That I'm a terrible person? That I ruined everything? Fine. I'm sorry if Chloe's feelings got hurt, but I was trying to do what I thought was best for all the children. I looked around the room at these people who'd shaped my understanding of family and love. Jennifer, do you understand the difference between an apology for hurt feelings and an apology for harmful behavior? What do you mean? You just said you're sorry if Chloe's feelings got hurt. That puts the responsibility on her for being too sensitive. A real apology would acknowledge that you said and did things that were designed to make her feel excluded and inferior, and that the harm was real and predictable. Jennifer stared at me for a long moment. I didn't think about it that way. Harold picked up my letter and flipped to the last page. Stacie, you said we had 30 days to respond with a plan for making amends to Chloe. What would that look like? This was the moment I'd been preparing for since I'd written the letter. First, genuine acknowledgement of the specific harm caused, not just general admissions that mistakes were made. Second, direct apologies to Chloe that take responsibility for the behavior without making excuses. Third, concrete commitments about how she'll be treated going forward, with specific examples of changes you'll make. And if we do those things, then we work on rebuilding trust gradually, with clear boundaries and consequences if the behavior returns. But the apologies have to be genuine, and the changes have to be real and sustained. Barbara wiped her eyes with a fresh tissue. What if we can't convince you that we're sincere? What if you decide we're not doing enough? Then Chloe and I move forward without relationships that require her to accept less than she deserves. I won't sacrifice my daughter's well-being to maintain family connections that harm her. Jennifer sank into a chair, looking defeated. So, you're saying that if we don't meet your standards for apologies and behavior changes, you'll cut us off completely? I'm saying that if you can't treat my daughter with basic respect and kindness, you don't get access to either of us. It's not about meeting my standards. It's about meeting basic human standards for how family members should treat each other. David stepped forward. Stacie, I think Jennifer and your parents are finally understanding how serious this is. What would help them know what specific changes you need to see? I pulled out a folder I'd brought with me. I've prepared a written response to their response. It outlines exactly what genuine accountability looks like, what kind of behavioral changes would be required, and how we'd measure progress. But I need to know that they're committed to actually changing, not just managing this crisis. I handed copies to Harold and Barbara. Take time to read this carefully. Discuss it honestly with each other. If you decide you can commit to treating Chloe with the dignity and respect she's always deserved, let me know. If you decide that's too much to ask, that's your choice too. As I turned to leave, Barbara called after me. Stacie, I want you to know that I love Chloe, and I'm horrified that my actions made her feel unloved. I stopped at the door. Barbara, I believe you love Chloe in your own way. But love without respect and dignity isn't enough. Chloe needs to know that her worth isn't conditional on circumstances beyond her control, and that her family values her exactly as much as they value Tyler and Madison. And if we prove we can do that, then maybe we can heal this family and make it into what it should have been all along. I left them to grapple with the consequences of years of choices they'd never expected to examine. The next move was theirs. But either way, Chloe and I would be okay. 2 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my parents' new apartment, watching Barbara teach Chloe how to make her grandmother's famous chocolate chip cookies. It was a small moment, ordinary and sweet, but it represented a transformation that 6 months ago I couldn't have imagined possible. The response to my ultimatum had taken 3 weeks and involved more tears, arguments, and soul-searching than my family had done in decades. But when Harold finally called to say they were ready to meet my conditions, his voice carried something I hadn't heard before: genuine humility. The formal apology session had been scheduled for a Saturday afternoon in February, with Linda Martinez present as a mediator. I'd brought Chloe, but with the understanding that she could leave at any time if she felt uncomfortable or manipulated. Jennifer had gone first, reading from a letter she'd written and rewritten multiple times. "Chloe, I owe you an apology that I should have given years ago. I treated you as less deserving of love and respect than Tyler and Madison, and I taught my children to do the same thing. I told myself I was protecting family values, but what I was really doing was protecting my own insecurities and prejudices. I was wrong. You never deserved any of the exclusion, criticism, or cruelty I directed toward you. I'm committed to doing the work necessary to earn back your trust, and to making sure Tyler and Madison understand that what I taught them about family hierarchy was completely wrong." Barbara and Harold had followed with their own acknowledgments of specific harmful behaviors and commitments to change. Most importantly, they'd agreed to family counseling sessions focused on repairing their relationship with Chloe and establishing new patterns of interaction. The process hadn't been smooth. There had been setbacks, moments when old attitudes surfaced, and conversations where I'd had to remind everyone that changed behavior, not good intentions, was the measure of progress. But gradually, something genuine had emerged. Tyler and Madison had required their own intervention. Jennifer had worked with a child psychologist to help them understand why their previous attitudes toward Chloe were wrong and hurtful. The conversations had been difficult, but 8-year-olds are remarkably adaptable when the adults in their lives model honesty and accountability. "Chloe, can you pass me the vanilla extract?" Barbara asked, pulling me back to the present moment. "Sure, Grandma." Chloe's voice was natural and relaxed, no longer carrying the careful wariness that had characterized her interactions with family for years. David had found steady employment with better pay than his previous job, which had removed much of the financial stress that had contributed to the family dysfunction. More importantly, he'd acknowledged his role in enabling Jennifer's behavior and committed to being a more active advocate for treating all family members with respect. Jennifer appeared in the kitchen doorway, returning from the store with ingredients for tonight's family dinner. The dynamics were still evolving, but there was something fundamentally different about her interactions with Chloe now. The competitive edge was gone, replaced by what seemed like genuine affection. "How are the cookies coming along?" Jennifer asked, setting grocery bags on the counter. "Chloe's a natural baker," Barbara said proudly, just like her mother was at that age. It was a small comment, but it represented the kind of inclusion and family storytelling that had been absent from Chloe's experience for years. Now she was connected to family history and tradition, not positioned outside of it. Harold emerged from his bedroom, where he'd been napping in his recliner. The apartment was smaller than their previous house, but it was manageable on their actual income, and the downsizing had forced them to confront the reality of their financial situation without relying on external support that came with hidden costs. "Smells like Christmas cookies in here," he said, wrapping his arms around Chloe from behind in an easy hug. "Are you going to save some for your old grandpa?" "Maybe a few," Chloe laughed, leaning back against him in a way that would have been impossible 6 months ago. The most significant change had been in my own approach to family relationships. I'd learned that protecting someone I loved sometimes meant disrupting systems that benefited everyone else. It meant choosing my daughter's well-being over other people's comfort, even when those people were family members I'd been taught to prioritize and please. That evening, as we sat around the dinner table in Harold and Barbara's small dining room, I looked at the scene I'd fought so hard to make possible. Chloe sat between her grandparents, fully included in conversation and treated with the same attention and affection as Tyler and Madison. Jennifer asked about her college applications with genuine interest. David helped her with math homework after dinner. Tyler and Madison argued with her about which movie to watch, the way cousins should. It looked like an ordinary family dinner, which was exactly what I'd wanted for my daughter all along. The extraordinary part was the work it had taken to get here. and the understanding that maintaining this new dynamic would require continued vigilance and commitment from everyone involved. After dinner, Chloe and I drove home through the quiet streets of our neighborhood. Spring was beginning to show in the early buds on tree branches and the longer daylight hours that stretched past 7 o'clock. "Mom, can I ask you something?" Chloe said as I pulled into our driveway. "Always. Do you think they really changed? Or are they just acting different because they're afraid of losing us?" It was a sophisticated question that showed how much she'd grown through this experience. "I think they started changing because they were afraid of consequences, but I believe the change is becoming real as they understand how their behavior affected you. The important thing is that you're safe now to be yourself around them, and you never have to accept less than respect and kindness from anyone, family or not. What if they slip back into old patterns? Then we adjust our boundaries accordingly. But Chloe, you never have to sacrifice your dignity or self-worth to maintain relationships with people, even people who love you. Love without respect isn't really love at all." As we walked up to our front door, Chloe put her arm through mine. "Thank you for fighting for me when I didn't know how to fight for myself. That's what mothers do. We protect our children, even from family members if necessary, and especially from family members who should know better." Inside our house, Chloe went upstairs to finish homework while I sat in the living room reflecting on the journey we'd taken together. The Christmas lights were long gone, but our home felt warmer and more secure than it had in years. We'd survived the crisis of choosing between family harmony and family health, and we'd chosen correctly. 6 months earlier, I'd believed that keeping peace meant accepting whatever treatment my family offered. I'd thought that being the supportive daughter and sister required enabling behavior that harmed my child. I'd confused loyalty with silence and love with compliance. But real love, I'd learned, sometimes requires difficult conversations and uncomfortable consequences. It means protecting the vulnerable members of your family, not just the most vocal or demanding ones. It means establishing boundaries that preserve everyone's dignity, even when those boundaries disrupt established patterns of behavior. Most importantly, I'd learned that my daughter was watching how I responded to injustice and mistreatment. By finally standing up to behavior that was wrong, I'd shown her that her worth wasn't negotiable and that she deserved to be valued and respected by everyone in her life. That lesson would serve her well in future relationships and give her the tools to advocate for herself when I wasn't there to do it for her. The family dinner tonight had been ordinary in the best possible way. Chloe had been included, valued, and loved without conditions or reservations. She'd laughed easily and spoken up confidently, secure in her place at the table and in her family. It was the relationship I'd always wanted for her, but hadn't known how to create until I was willing to risk everything to protect what mattered most. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone we love is the courage to demand what they deserve, even from people who are supposed to love them unconditionally. Family isn't just about blood relations or shared history. It's about creating relationships where everyone feels valued, respected, and celebrated for exactly who they are. The path to healing had required accountability, genuine change, and ongoing commitment from everyone involved. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every difficult conversation and uncomfortable moment. My daughter now knew that her family loved her, not despite her circumstances, but because of who she was as a person. She knew that she deserved respect and kindness, and that she never had to settle for less. That knowledge would serve her well for the rest of her life, in every relationship and every situation where she needed to advocate for herself. And someday, if she became a mother herself, she'd know how to protect her own children's dignity and worth, no matter who challenged it or why. Standing up for what's right isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. Family means protecting each other's dignity and worth, not just maintaining comfortable traditions. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable behavior that harms someone you love, even when that refusal disrupts everything you thought you understood about loyalty and family commitment. The lesson I'd learned, and the one I hope to pass on to my daughter, was simple but profound. Love without respect is incomplete, and respect without boundaries is impossible. True family relationships require both, and they're worth fighting for, even when the fight is harder than you ever imagined it could be. As I turned off the lights and headed upstairs to say goodnight to Chloe, I felt a deep sense of peace that had been absent from my life for years. We'd found our way through the darkness of family dysfunction and discovered that genuine love and respect were possible when everyone committed to growth and change. My daughter was safe, valued, and loved exactly as she deserved to be. And that, more than any comfortable tradition or peaceful gathering, was what real family looked like. Have you ever had to choose between keeping family peace and protecting someone you love? What would you have done in my situation when you discovered your own family was treating your child as less deserving of love and respect? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below about how you navigate difficult family dynamics while protecting the people who matter most. If this story resonated with you or helped you think differently about family relationships and boundaries, please give it a like and share it with others who might benefit from hearing about the importance of standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about finding strength in challenging situations and learning to prioritize what truly matters in life. Thank you for listening to this journey of learning that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to accept the unacceptable. I hope it encourages you to examine your own relationships and ensure that everyone you love knows they deserve dignity, respect, and unconditional acceptance for exactly who they are. Until next time, remember that protecting the people you love sometimes requires courage you didn't know you had, and that courage is always worth finding.